So this is way different from where I was at 9 o'clock. And I can't see some people, and I'm sorry about that. But I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I have to sit when I preach. So you'll just have to listen carefully since you can't see me. Sometimes it's harder to listen when you can't see a person, but I'm here. So I bring you greetings from Atlanta and from the Diocese of Atlanta, and where our Bishop Rob Wright likes to say, we're 56,000 men, women, and children, and feisty seniors, and I want you to know that I'm one of the feisty seniors. I'm delighted that Reverend Keith has invited me to come and be with you all and with him here in this space, because it was so wonderful having him as a co-laborer in Atlanta, and I miss him a lot, but I always try to be grateful for my friends' good fortune, even when it means it takes them away from where I happen to be. So I'm not moving to Florida, I don't think, anyway, but, but I'm delighted to be here. And I have been so heartened by the lovely hospitality and engagement that I've experienced in these days since I got here on Friday evening. So thank you very much. I can always judge how a trip is for me around how tired I am. I'm getting ready to go home after this afternoon, and I'm not really tired. And that means that it's been a good give and take, a sharing of energy. And I love that. And I'm enthusiastic about the ways in which you are moving forward with getting into this conversation around justice, and particularly around racial healing. But now for a little bit, let's pay attention to the gospel. So Jesus always, I'm so fascinated these days as I read Jesus's words, because for one thing, Jesus is always talking on a whole lot of levels. You know, so if you read something, I mean, it's like, I've got your attention now, let me tell you this, this, and this, and then, oh yeah, while I'm talking to you, you need to know this too. So that's happening in this gospel. Here he is talking about how you need to be. I mean, what has to be happening in you in order for you to be okay going out to do what you need to be doing. So what is this stuff about saltiness? What is he talking about? What is he after here? And he wants us to know that we've got to have potency. We've got to have something in us. If we lose our potency, if we lose our capacity for transformation, salt is a very amazing transformative agent. You can fix food with it and make it wonderful, or you can ruin food with it. You can cure things with it. You can use it for medicinal purposes. Salt is an amazing, versatile ingredient that is an interesting thing to think about having to be compared to something like that. So for one thing that comes to me about this is that that's the way we're to be in the world. We need to be in the world as this curative agent, transformative agent, an agent with potency, to talk about you are the salt of the earth. My goodness, what a profound image when you think about what salt does, how salt acts. So, and then he goes on to say, if you then are that, this is how you behave. You go out in the world and you do stuff, and you don't hide yourself. You don't hide under a bushel. You don't hide your light. You go out, you stand tall, you carry this transformative energy, and you let it show people who God is. That's quite amazing. Here's how you're supposed to be. Here's what you do in response to it. And then it gets into this whole business about obedience, the law, and what's going to happen and all that, so which is a different conversation. And we're going to focus on the salt part and the light bit this morning. But I want to say that if you are interrogating yourself a little bit and finding that you may not know exactly how salty you are, maybe you have lost some of your saltiness. Maybe you feel separated from saltiness when you think about it this way, when you think about being this transformative agent in the world, has your salt lost its taste a little bit? Does the salt need to be replenished and restored? So I want to suggest that one of the ways that we can restore the saltiness to ourselves is by paying attention to all of the different parts that live inside of us. That's known in the psychological world as an inner community. And we don't talk enough in the church about the inner community and its way of managing us. We tell people, to be forgiving, to love your neighbor like yourself. But we don't get around to talking about what are those things inside of us that hinder us from being forgiving. At least not a lot. We don't talk about it enough. We talk about it some, but not enough. What's in us that's keeping us from being forgiving? What's in us that keeps us from loving our neighbor as ourselves? Because, you say to love your neighbor as yourself, but then you don't love yourself, which is what we see a lot of. So we are loving our neighbors as ourselves. That's the problem, So we need to work on identifying those parts of ourselves that we have set off somewhere or tried to bury or tried to ignore, whatever, and they keep on popping up. They keep on destabilizing us. So those little unknown entities, that energy in us that we haven't bothered to name and acknowledge and try to open up to the light of healing, becomes an undermining force. And I like to describe that undermining force as being an energy vampire. Can you think about, here's these little things running around, sucking up your energy. Because every time you think you want to go down one road, you find yourself at cross purposes with yourself. St. Paul says, when I want to do one thing, I don't do it. And then something that I don't want to do, I do. That kind of internal conflict a lot of it comes from not getting it together with your whole inner community. That all these parts, these voices, these contrary things that are there have got to be dealt with. And until they're dealt with, they just leave you floundering and they cause you to not be potent, not be transformative, not to be salty, because your energy is being diminished by the war that's going on inside of yourself. Right now in our culture, we have a lot of inner war going on in people, and it manifests itself in fear and the kind of polarization and ugliness that we have witnessed in the last, just out in the culture. But what we need to all be doing is looking at our own selves in the mirror saying, how do I contribute to this by not making friends with parts of myself that I'm not, sometimes not even totally aware of, sometimes aware of and don't like, and just trying to pretend like they don't exist. But that kind of knowledge has got to happen in order for us to have this kind of power that Jesus is describing here. You think about transformative energy, which is what salt is. You put salt on something, it's not the same thing it was before you put it on it. So how are you being transformative? How is your life being that kind of force in the world? And if it's not, what are the hindrances? Where are the energy vampires undermining you? Those are maybe some good questions to think about as you go forward from this day. And then when you kind of come to grips with that whole inner system and all those little voices that keep trying to tell you to go one way when you want to go another way, and you need to name them, you need to interact with them, you need to talk to them, you need to get them straight so that you can be all on one page. When you're on that one page, then you become this empowered person that can go out into the world and be the light that Jesus is talking about being. And then Jesus says, make sure you let that light shine. Don't go hiding. Don't go trying to be secretive about shining the light, about being salty. Because a lot of folks are timid about being faithful followers of Jesus Christ, because it's not always convenient, and it's not always popular, and it sometimes creates conflict with people that we care about when we take a certain path to follow. So I think that there's some wisdom here in this passage of admonishing us to once you lit this lamp, put it up on the stand so it can bring light. Don't cover it up. Don't be one of those people of faith that folks have been around for 20 years and they didn't even know that about you, because you couldn't tell the difference between you and anybody else. Now, this is a challenge to all of us, because nobody gets there and is done forever. It's a journey. We're pilgrims on this journey, and we're trying to get more conscious all the time. And so we're all in this together. I love Henry Nouwen's image of the wounded healer, that the wounded healer is a person, the healer is a person who's wounded and has learned where the bandage closet is and has gone there and is willing then to tell other people where to find bandages. So that's us. We are wounded healers walking on a pilgrim journey and being challenged to be the salt of the earth and to show our light in the world. But yet the world is not that interested in us a lot of the time. And so we have to go in spite of it. And we can go in spite of it because we have done this inner work that helps us to have the courage to know that that's what we're supposed to be doing. When we have confronted the stuff inside of ourselves, we become way less afraid of everything that's external to us. It is amazing how facing up to what our inner community is about helps us to not be so caught off guard by the things we encounter in the world external to us. And so we don't get blown around like a tumbleweed in a whirlwind, because we know who we are. We know where we stand. As I said earlier in the forum today, Howard Thurman, who's one of my most important mentors, says that what the world needs is for us to be people who have come alive, people who have awakened to who they are and what they're called to. And you go out into the world as this alive person full of saltiness and ready to be a light. Think about that. A world full of people like that. What do? We transform stuff. Not because somebody told us we were supposed to. We're doing it because we can't help ourselves. Glory be to God when we are acting because we can't help ourselves. Not even because it's right, but because we are alive and on fire, and we are listening and obedient and doing what our heart is leading us toward. I just think that when that's happening, we see people that are peaceful, people that are glad to be alive, people that love their life. And when I was younger, I could not imagine ever getting to a day where I would say I love my life. But in 2 weeks, I'll be 74, and I'm here to say I love my life. I love my life. And I love my life because I have come to befriend my inner community. And I know those little folks running around in there trying to disrupt me and do different stuff. And I stay in conversation with them and keep bringing them to God's light and saying, okay, you got to get on with the program here, you know? You got to get on with this work. And so but you're wherever you are, and God loves us all exactly where we are, and thinks the world of us exactly where we are. So as you go from this worship space today, I want to encourage you to ask yourselves, what's the taste of your salt? How salty are you? How are you being used, or how capable of being used to be transformative energy in your community, wherever that community is, or at school, or wherever you happen to be, whatever age you happen to be? Everybody has a responsibility to try to be the best light they can be. So I encourage you to ask yourself about that and to listen carefully to the answer. And then I encourage you to every day seek the faith and courage to keep on asking that question. My good friend David White, who is a wonderful poet that some of you may know, talks about being a half a shade braver, a half a shade braver. So may the good Lord give you the courage tomorrow, the rest of this day, and tomorrow in the days to come, to be a half a shade braver as you go out into the world, being really good salt. Thank you.